Amon Prasad, CEO of Network Remedy. We are actually a managed services, IT managed services provider. So I'll do a quick intro. For those of you who are in the SaaS space, I'm sure you've come across managed service providers in the past. Also, working with resellers in general, you probably come across the traditional reseller versus working with a company like ours. What is an MSP? Everyone has their own little definition of what we typically do, but I like to just have a quick explanation of what we do. Essentially, we like to become the IT department for other companies. We like to own the entire IT lifecycle, all the way from help desk to CIO level planning, budgeting, everything in between, all the expertise that's required. That way the clients don't have to hire in-house, and we provide them the entire strategic life cycle of their IT investment. Everything from aligning IT with different business units, understanding the challenges that they deal with, and making IT a valuable part of their business. Now, that said, as a small business in the Bay Area, we're not VC funded, we're completely bootstrapped, started many years back, and still working our way up. Strategic partnerships become a really high value for us. Companies like yourselves, SaaS vendors, are consistently reaching out to us and trying to partner with us because we have the trusted relationship with our clients. So we work with everything from the 50-person mom and pop shop to 2,000 user environments, publicly traded, and all the stuff in between. So clearly, we would be an awesome company to partner with for your products to get them to market sooner, get them in front of decision makers sooner, because the decision makers at these clients typically trust us because we've built that relationship and that trust already. So I sometimes feel like a hot girl at a bar because I'm consistently getting hit on by SaaS vendors trying to partner with me. So how do I cut through that noise, and how do we make the selections in terms of who do we partner with? Does it make sense for us, etc. And we'll get to those things. I just want to touch base on these things, and we'll talk about really the nuts and bolts of why I'm here and why Dina asked me to speak. We are very much about relationships versus the transactions. What do I mean by this? Your traditional big reseller firms out there, the CDWs, the SHIs, the big distributor firms out there, they tend to be very transactional. The client typically needs to decide which SaaS product they want ahead of time and then reach out to this reseller and say, hey, give me a price, right? They don't necessarily have all the broad range or the exposure that we bring to the table, understanding the business challenge that they're trying to solve. So that's where we tend to be a much smarter company to partner with because we understand the business challenge. And we actually have a much broader range of companies that we can actually draw upon and knowledge that we can draw upon to select the right product for them. Why is SaaS important to us? Why the hell should we partner with SaaS companies? Why can't we just have them buy stuff directly? It creates stickiness. We're a services firm. Our service is our product. So we don't sell widgets, we don't sell any product. So for us, we need to get our fingers into every business unit as much as possible, become that trusted company so that the client has a very difficult time moving away from us. I'm sure the SaaS companies out there like yourselves probably come through the similar types of challenges. You want to address a business problem, but you want to generate that stickiness so that you get that recurring revenue for the long term. So that's for us. We love working with SaaS partners. It's just a matter of selecting the right ones to work with. Companies like Network Remedy, why are we important to you guys? Again, we're a trusted sales partner. Reduce your sales churn, reduce the cost of hiring sales staff, reduce all that extra marketing that you have to do to get your product in front of eyes and make that sale. Partner with a company like ours, or many companies like ours, and we're already bringing clients to you ahead of time. We're already making their recommendation. I like to call ourselves the recommendation engine for SaaS vendors a lot of times, because it's in our best interest to cloudify as much as possible so we're not dealing with managing stuff on site. And if a SaaS vendor can solve a piece of the giant puzzle, great. You know, if multiple SaaS vendors can solve different pieces of the puzzle and I can offload that and make a cut off the top, hell yeah. I'm all over that. So, next slide. What do we look for when selecting a SaaS partner? And this is the real important part, I think, that everyone here probably wants to understand. Highest priority, is this product the right product for our clients' needs? As a managed services provider, my clients' needs are first and foremost, the highest priority. I don't really necessarily care that I'm partnered with company A or company B and pushing their product. It has to make sense for the client's need and that particular problem. If it doesn't match their needs completely, is it customizable enough to get us there? And that's really the driving force behind us selecting the right partners. Second, is it difficult or complex to implement? Us as the middleman or the middle person company in between the SaaS vendor and the client, the implementation process and the support, all of that comes into play because my team is the one that's actually in there dealing with it, nuts and bolts. And this is one of those really challenging issues for me as a business owner, because I end up, a lot of times, if we select the wrong SaaS partner, they give us a product that on the sales pitch seems amazing, but it's not mature enough to really be implemented as we expected. So we end up spending a lot of time and energy and resources to actually do QA for the SaaS vendor. Obviously, that's not an attractive proposition for us, because at the end of the day, I'm selecting a product that I'm not getting paid for to do a ton of QA. So if I'm gaining, say, $1,000 a month in recurring revenue from the first deployment, but I'm spending $3,000 a month on resources to help QA your product, it's probably not ideal. Other things that I would really wish that SaaS vendors would think about and plan for is, if you have a solution that you're trying to sell, most of the time you're not going to sell to a fresh, clean, brand new company without existing data or information or databases. So what we really need from our SaaS vendors out there is top quality support. They have to understand what the client really is expecting in terms of support. And if my team is doing the implementation, they need to be able to reach out to the right folks in your company and get that implementation done so that we can begin generating revenue and improving your product. One more other thing is data migration from existing systems. That is a real challenge that we find a lot. I'm going to use an example of a SaaS partner we have, a company called Ignite. Many of you probably heard of them. They're an amazing product, cloud-based file services, kind of like Box or Dropbox, but for the corporate environment. Product works great, deploy it in a brand new company, amazing. But 90% of the deployments are for companies that have existing file systems in place. Their migration product was terrible. So we had extreme problems getting that information over to the Ignite platform. So my team ended up spending a lot of time and energy getting that migration tool to work really well. And of course, it's in Ignite's best interest to get that migration tool out to all of their clients and all of their channels, and the client's adoption is a lot faster and a lot cleaner when these things are thought through as a SaaS vendor on your end. Certainly, we're open to helping you improve your product, but we're not going to try to QA your product. So, like I was speaking to a gentleman earlier, and I said, if you have a product that's 80% good to go, we don't mind doing that 20% QA. Obviously, if your product's 100% good to go, it's probably too late to market. So getting your product out there sooner rather than later, I understand that. But if it's only 50% of the way there and you're trying to get it to market to just start generating revenue, you're going to hit some hurdles, and those are the kinds of hurdles that we like to avoid because it makes us look bad to our clients. Our clients expect us to do all the work. We're the go-to IT team. So whoever we introduce to them has to be a really, really strong partner resource for us. Lastly, is it easy to manage? Here's something that we find a lot of. When we deploy one product to one client, it works really well. We'd like to deploy that at other places because we're all about standardizing our support system so that my team can manage the same product across multiple companies. What we find, though, is SaaS vendors typically don't necessarily think about how the channel partners, i.e. managed services partners, the IT folks, are going to be managing multiple clients in one single pane of glass. So a really slick management portal would really go a long way. Examples of this, Microsoft's Office 365 platform. That's a really, really nice example. We have an admin login. We can see every client that we manage in there, and we can manage all their solutions without having to log into a different dashboard every time. Yeah, it's a small thing, but it really goes a long way towards attracting a managed services partner like us or a reseller who can manage your platform in a nice, concise fashion, a single pane of glass. So again, just kind of forward thinking about how to build your channel, what attracts us to your solution, these types of things. Ignite also, they have a really nice reseller platform, reseller pane of glass, so we can go in and look through. Cisco's cloud managed products, also another good example. Cisco Meraki products. We manage a lot of firewalls and switches and Wi-Fi, et cetera. All that, we can manage all of our clients' platforms in one single pane of glass. I would have loved to show you a screenshot of that, but we like to keep our client base very, very private. So I didn't want to show client names in there, but just try to visualize the fact that there are multiple clients that we have to manage, and having a single pane of glass to manage it from really makes our lives easier, and therefore your product much more attractive when we want to partner with you. Adding and removing seats, adding and removing, scaling up and down, all that kind of stuff. If we can do that in a nice management portal, again, makes our lives easier, makes your product much more attractive. Couple of things, and these things, these are challenges that many of you, I'm sure, come across. Is the SaaS provider a viable company? Obviously, if you're a startup or if you're in your infancy and you're trying to get your product out to market, we're going to have, we're going to have to try to make a distinct choice on whether or not this makes sense for our clients. I would hate to deploy a SaaS solution in a 1,000-user environment that is publicly traded and they're a billion-dollar company, and all of a sudden they buy into this whole thing, they begin using the platforms, a bunch of information in there, and then the company, the SaaS provider, goes out of business because they ran out of VC funds. So these are things that we have to think about as resellers of your product. It's all well and good if you have an amazing product or you think you have an amazing product, but in the real world, when we go to deploy it, we want to make sure that your product is going to stick around. It's going to be there for us as we, obviously we grow when the seat amounts grow and we collect that revenue on the recurring side. For you guys, we're the channel that's going to help you grow that platform. But this is one of those concerns that I'm not sure there's a real good answer to this. But again, this is something that you guys should think about in terms of when you do actually partner. So a couple of nice things that help with this. Going direct to an end customer versus a partner first, and this was something that Clint touched on. If you have a marquee client that you can bring to the table and get us excited about, you say, company XYZ that's fairly well known has bought our product and they're willing to be our reference, that really goes a long way to helping us make that choice and partnering with you because, this big firm here is trusting your product, so they've already made some investment. That, again, carries through to other larger firms. And as a managed service provider, we deal with the same thing. Like, why the hell should we trust all of our important data and our IT infrastructure and all this with you guys? Who the hell are you, right? So we lead a lot of times with references and say, this company, they're fairly large and well-known in the industry. They choose to work with us. They've worked with us for the last 5 years, et cetera. Here's the key person to talk to. Talk to them yourself. See how we're doing. All of that really builds a little bit of transparency, but also creates a little bit of legitimacy around your particular company. And obviously, there are some solutions out there that are going to be in their infancy, but are so compelling or such a great product out of the gate that people just buy into it right away. Case in point, let's say Airbnb or Dropbox or Uber. I mean, these things kind of kicked off, obviously SaaS products. People were excited about it. There's a huge and quick adoption by the community, and now they're massive. So as tech people, we can all kind of grasp the value that a particular SaaS product brings to the table. And I think that really makes, if it's a compelling enough product, yes, we would love to partner with you. If it's just another one of those products that has 10 other versions out there, maybe not so compelling and not so game-changing, at which point we have to factor in these other attributes. Again, the QA thing, are we working to improve your product? Certainly, you can depend on partners like us to help you improve your product, because we're going to deploy it in the real world. We're going to deal with the challenges, the client, the end user complaints, the issues that we come across. We're going to report that back to you. There has to be a cohesive partnership between the engineering folks or your support team and our team. If we have to call into the tier 1 support chain and sit on the phone for an hour to deal with a small issue, that's not a good indicator of how well our partnership is going to work. So going back to my original point, we're very much about relationships with our clients and relationships with our partners. So these things are really, really important. And if you're looking to invest your dollars in the right places, invest in your support and engineering a little bit more, maybe a little bit less on your sales team, and work with partners like us to help bolster that particular sales effort. Because what we see a lot of this is, people hire a massive sales team and go big push to get out to market, but the product's not necessarily selling as well as they expected because people aren't adopting, and there's just a saturation of SaaS products out there. You have to figure out a way to differentiate yourself in order to attract clients and partners like us. Last and probably one of the most important things, what's in it for me? What's in it for Network Remedy or your partner? I mean, yes, it's going to be a great product for our client. It'll fix their business problem that we're trying to fix. But I'd love to get some incentive. If we're going to be your sales team, make it attractive for us. Make it worthwhile for us to go out there and sell on your behalf. Make it so it's. I understand. Its margins is. If you're selling a $4 a seat type of product, we don't necessarily need 50% of it, but a 25% margin would be nice because we're doing a bunch of the work for you. At the same time, as we scale the seat count or the volume count, your product is creating a compelling sales pipeline. We're all winning. So ultimately, we're investing time and energy and money to partner with any of our SaaS vendors out there. So it's in your best interest to make sure that when you do partner with companies like ours, we think about these particular metrics. Anyway, so I want to keep it short and sweet, and I know there were several people I met with earlier, and they had a bunch of questions, and I think as SaaS vendors, you probably have a ton of questions, so I wanted to keep this more conversational and less kind of PowerPoint slides, but I'd love to hear some of your feedback and questions about this.
Nice presentation. So as an MSP, what percentage of SaaS vendors you work with are you a true reseller, so it ends up being on your paper, you have that sort of arrangement, versus how much are referral partners, so you're getting maybe 25% of the ACV, and then are there some SaaS vendors you work with where it's strictly downstream revenue, you're getting the services?
As a percentage, it's tough to say because here's why. Sorry, it's my chapstick. So there are some SaaS products that are applicable to most of our portfolio companies. Things like email or cloud file servers. And then there are others that are very, very industry specific. So if you're a construction firm, you probably have a specific application that you'd like to use in the field there. And they all have their different models in terms of how they incentivize companies like ours. Many times we've negotiated where we'd like to put it through our own paper, where we could purchase on a heavily discounted amount or significantly discounted amount, and then we run it through our paper so that to our client, we still own and maintain that relationship. And we can mark it up to whatever we like, whatever we think the client's willing to pay for this particular solution. Because we're going to do the heavy lifting and the sales side of things, we're going to do the implementation piece of it. We don't like to be capped in terms of, okay, here's the fixed price, and you're going to get a little 10% at the end of each quarter or whatever it is. Certainly, there are many companies that already do that. So in terms of, I'd say probably 50-50, to be honest, in terms of running it through our own paper or having it as a kickback. So Microsoft does this they partner with MSPs a lot because they understand the value there. What they do is, in fact, they just have a direct ACH deposit every quarter for every new seat, every new license, every new upgrade, every new client that you bring on board. They're just kicking us cash in the back. There's no need for me to run it through our paper at all. Other companies that are smaller, they don't necessarily have that whole infrastructure built already. They're much more aggressive. They'll say, hey, I'll give it to you at a 50% discount. You can mark it up to whatever the hell you like, right? And we can add our own flavor of management on top of it. We can add our own little, branding, whatever it is that we want. Creates stickiness for us, creates a revenue stream for the SaaS vendor. So percentage-wise, I'd say probably 50-50. Yes, sir?
So building on that sort of same thing. So when you're acting as the relationship with the end client, as opposed to just like a lead gen or affiliate, I assume then you're providing the support, right? Like when that customer has a problem, you're providing the support.
Yep.
And so you have to be trained on that product. So what's the training you expect from your SaaS vendor?
So again, this is, depending on the product. When we own that relationship, we end up being the first line of defense for any and all IT issues, whether it's SaaS vendor, whether it's your local PC, whether it's some server parked in their IT room. So I don't have an expectation of having my team trained in the nuts and bolts of your product at all. What I really want is a direct line of communication to a solid support team on your end. I don't like hearing, oh, we're not open on weekends. Shoot us an email, we'll come back to you on Monday. As you know, most IT work happens after hours. When people are not using their systems, we're the ones doing all the heavy lifting, doing all the upgrades and updates and patches and whatnot. So at least having a direct line of communication. Maybe you don't have the resources to have a 24/7 help desk yet, but if we can at least reach a couple of good resources on your team, if and when we need them, that counts for a whole lot in terms of us selecting that partner to work with moving forward and continuing that relationship, helping you grow. Our goal is to create that recurring revenue stream without having to do a whole lot of work. So the training component, yes, we need to understand the product at a basic level, maybe a slightly more than basic level, especially when my implementation team's out there doing the implementation or the migration, doing all that kind of stuff. And again, it'll offload some of your support resources as well. If you're building out your company, you want to allocate your dollars appropriately. And if we can be that first line of support for you with some basic enough training, we can do that, absolutely, right? That's the value we bring to you. But obviously, there's going to be some point in time where our knowledge base is not going to be enough. We have to talk to some engineering folks. We need to have that direct contact very quickly. So, sure. Anybody else? Any other questions? Some of the couple of things that I heard earlier were, I pretty much covered everything. But sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. When you look at where you are today, what do you see as your next big choices in the next 12, 18, 24 months as an MSP? What are the cloud SaaS applications that you're seeing coming out that you really want to take to market to your customer base?
So we as a company, we like to push for business continuity. And this is something that many companies don't necessarily think about because they think they have backups in the cloud or wherever, and it's all good. They don't really think about the fact that if there's a disaster, it's going to take at least a week to buy new hardware, maybe a few extra days to figure out where the hell they're going to put all that hardware. We need to get internet service. We need to get everything rebuilt and then restored from the cloud. You're looking at 2 weeks of downtime. Most companies go out of business in 2 weeks if they're not able to build and function. So for us, the push is to cloudify as much as possible in a cohesive fashion, and design and build and implement that business continuity so that they can be up and running within hours and not days or weeks. Failover sites or failover into Amazon, recovery into AWS or Azure, critical business functions, SaaSified. I don't know, that's not even a word, but I just made that up. But that really makes sense, right? So if we can take your email function, for instance, instead of hosting it in-house, push it up to G Suite or Office 365. We can take your documents and files and move them up to Ignite or SharePoint or a similar product. Great. Now, if something happens in your office buildings, not a big deal. You go sit in Starbucks. You still connect your resources, your billing platform or your database solution, because these are not necessarily tied physically to where you are. And that's something that we like to push, and I think companies are finally realizing that that's a big hole in their IT infrastructure. So educating our clients on that and then implementing solutions, SaaS solutions, really makes sense for us.
Got it. So, Clint mentioned earlier that there is no such thing really as selling immediately once you sign on and become a reseller to a SaaS vendor. What would you say is your typical launch time before expecting to actually close a sale?
I think Clint was very much on the money in terms of the timing. Yes, it takes us about 3 months to vet your products. And like I said, I'm getting bombarded. I mean, my biz dev folks are getting bombarded. Hey, you want to partner? We got this new cool product, and it's B2B and B2C, and every acronym they can think of, they throw at us. And really, we have to cut through that chatter and really understand the product. That takes about 3 months, 2 to 3 months for us to understand the product, run it by my team, because they're in the weeds a lot more than I am, and they can tell us, oh, this is a valuable product. We need this in our portfolio. Make it happen. And then after that, when we make that decision, we sign the agreements. There's a training component, another 3 months minimum, right? And then familiarization, having a pilot deployed at some companies or some of the smaller companies would deploy them. Great, works fantastic. So to be quite honest, close to a year, 9 months to a year before we're actually successfully generating revenue and rolling your product out consistently at all of our clients or most of our clients, wherever the need is. So timing-wise, I think Clint's right on the money. About 9 to 12 months before we're really heavily generating revenue. And the ones we have chosen, it's been about that. So, any other questions?
Thanks for sharing your experiences.
Sure.
Broadly speaking, the way that you were describing the transition from on-site to SaaSification, whatever, Is that the big trend you're seeing, and how does implementation complexity play into your thought processes? And what I mean by that is specifically when you look at enterprise software, like if you're going to do an SAP implementation, it's very complex, and the amount of training you need to do on-site with your client is going to be pretty high. So when you're looking at new partners, how does that play into your decision-making process?
I didn't mention that there in terms of the end user training. I think that's kind of what you're getting at, is not only the implementation, but the end user training. Absolutely, we would love to have those resources available to us. I understand most SaaS companies these days are in a kind of startup mode or a new company mode. They may not necessarily have all those resources available. But if you can have someone available to help us understand the product, help us deploy it, help our end users be trained on it. Like I said, we're happy to, because we're going to choose to partner with you, I'd be happy to allocate a resource on our side to learn from the initial training sessions, and then we can go pick up and go. And we've done this several times over, Ignite being a perfect case in point. They've done plenty of trainings with my team, and now pretty much most of my team runs, every time we deploy Ignite to a particular client, my team does the training. That's that burden off of Ignite's hands. We're the implementation team, we're the training team. But yes, if it's that's a more simple and focused product. But if it's an SAP or an Oracle or Salesforce deployment, it's very intricate and complex. Certainly, we would love to have those training resources available to us. And again, the partnership word comes into play, right? Because we're not just a reseller, we're a reseller partner. And we expect that same partnership to function both directions. Cool. Anything else, folks?
I got one more question. So when you're talking about the implementation and them helping you train you up on those types of pieces, maybe talk a little bit about how sticky that makes you with them. It's very difficult to move you from that product once you've
Sticky with our clients or sticky with
the vendor partner.
Absolutely, right? So again, it works both ways for us as well. If we're selling your product out in the market, we're the tried and true and trusted partner of yours. I'm sure you're still going to continue your direct efforts to land your own clients independent of us. But if we're the trained partner that you trust, that we handle a lot of tier 1 calls, we would hope that when the time comes, you sell 1,000 seats to some new company, and they're like, well, great, this is awesome. Who the hell's going to implement this, and who the hell's going to support this after it's done? We're like, hey, check it out. Talk to Network Remedy. They're a trusted partner of ours. They've done this deployment, a bunch of times, or they're well trained, or they've helped us grow. Scratch my back, I scratch yours. That's kind of the expectation around that stuff.
You're not going to jump to competitors real quick.
We I don't like to jump between competitors because, again, we invest a lot of time and energy in understanding a product that we settle upon. And, there's always competition for pretty much every SaaS function out there. There's probably 2 or 3 or 5 options we can go with. It all comes down to that relationship component and having that, these aspects, at least 80% of these in place really goes a long way for us. So we're not in the habit of jumping ship and rolling out a new thing because our clients expect some level of stability and product transparency and et cetera. So if we're jumping and throwing stuff at them, it doesn't generate a lot of trust between them and us. So we have to be able to get the right product and be able to support it and implement it and all that kind of stuff.
So one additional question, because I know we get this a lot when we're talking to SaaS vendors who come to us, which is, do I have to pay them a evergreen commission? What if I want to just pay them for the first sale or the upfront or up to a year or whatever? What's your take on limited commissions versus evergreen when you're selling a SaaS software?
Again, it depends on the implementation of the solution. If it's purely just us making a recommendation and a warm introduction, and we pick up, whatever quick upfront piece, we can certainly do that. But all of the implementation, all the support needs to go through directly to the SaaS vendor. The problem here for companies like us lies in the fact that we're the first line of defense in the IT realm, so anything touching IT comes to our team. Right? And we like that because, again, it creates that stickiness for us. So ultimately, the partnership for us, the things that we like are a more long-term type of relationship, rather than just a quick one-night stand type of thing. You know, let's maintain that long partnership. And that, again, the word partner comes up many, many times over. So,
Any other questions? All right, I think it's happy hour time. Amon,
right.
thank you so much for your
Absolutely.
time.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.